Hello and welcome to Mindset Mondays with DTK. This is episode 7. It's Monday, March 26th. I had to remember what month we're in. Glad you're joining. And this is part of my year-long series in exploring mindset and the power of mindset and what we gain in our lives by getting to select the mindset and live from a place of choice. So thanks for joining me, whether you're joining early morning here, mid-afternoon in Europe, or tomorrow morning in Pacific Rim. Nice to see some familiar faces joining in. So today, the playground is playing with a quote I like, actually. You're far too smart to be the only thing standing in your way. And I noticed that Jennifer's quote, she doesn't say you're the only one standing in your way. It's the only thing standing in your way. And I find this a powerful quote because it's so simple. It's just naming the simple truth that we are the only thing standing in our way. And whether it's the mindset that we choose, whether it's the belief that we have made up as true and hold as true, whatever it is. So today I'd like to get a little more of a conversation with folks. What are you experiencing? Where are the places in your life where you're noticing that you're making choices that hold you back, or you're holding beliefs that hold you back? Whether those are the blind spots that you've become aware of but won't really own, or whether those are the truths that you know but you're denying that they're true out of a matter of convenience or really ease, or where are the knowings or the intuitions that you're choosing to ignore. And this is not supposed to be a beat on ourselves day. This is just a chance to, without judgment, to declare what that truth is. Where does your gut speak to you, but you don't listen to it? Right? Where is it that you are choosing to listen to the stories in your head and not to what your gut is telling you? So while people are offering up thoughts on where it is that they stand in their own way, something I learned a few years ago from the neuroscience side, that there are more nerve signals, more information flowing from the body to the brain than there are signals moving from the brain to the body. And yet we think that all of our wisdom and all of our intelligence and all of our knowledge and information stem from here, this 2-pound lump of gray and white matter in our skulls. And the second largest bundle of nerve ganglia, nerve tissue in the body, is wrapped around your stomach. There's a reason we talk about listening to your gut and gut intuition. And yet, how often do we just ignore that altogether, right? The idea of walking into any decision and trying to make a decision but doing it with just your gut or just your head is like walking into the boxing ring with one arm tied behind your back, right? It's not the wisest way to face any challenge. So, I listen to folks talk about, being too busy to get X, Y, Z done. Oh, right, so perfect, Jody. There you go. Thank you, Jody. That's sort of perfect. The idea that just so damn busy, there's not time to get stuff done. And you've even said it there in your comment. It's not prioritizing, when choosing your priorities and choosing the mindset of, yes, there's time when I prioritize. So one way that people stand in their way is being busy, working hard and long instead of working smart, right? Beth and I, my partner in my last company, one of the people in my Vistage group kept telling me that Beth and I needed an assistant. We needed an assistant. And Beth and I kept saying, no, it's not revenue generating. It's just an expense black hole. It's not a good use of our money. And we had told ourselves that was true over and over and over again. And in this business, I watched my wife in Touchstone Coaching in her company. Before she had client number 1, she had hired a bookkeeper/assistant. And I'll tell you, taking the things that we're not good at and are not the highest and best use of our time off our plate is incredibly freeing. So just by having to step out of her own way, to bring on an assistant, to take those things off our plate that we're frankly terrible at, allowed us much more time to do the things that we're best at and are most appropriate for our purpose, the highest and best use of our time. So that instead of choosing busy, we chose smart. I only wish that I had listened to Anne Herman when she had given me the advice to get an assistant 15 years ago. And so, Tracy, it's another one, choosing pleasing others versus doing what you really want. It's that pleaser saboteur, that voice inside that says we'll be in better connection when we please others. And that's an incredibly powerful obstacle to getting done what you want. And Sherry hit what we talked about last week, overthinking about doing stuff instead of doing it, right? Done beats perfect, but we can sit there planning and thinking about it only to never actually take action. That was the quote last week. It was, overthinking is the art of creating problems that don't yet exist. So overthinking is a great way, and staying in your head and in planning phase is a great way that people stay in their own way, right? Some of the simple tasks can trip you up. Yeah, Bill had said that some of the simple tasks can trip him up. And I get that. The reason I hired Jody, by the way, orangestar.com, the reason I'd hired Jody to do my website is because I knew that if I sat down to do my site, it wouldn't be nearly as well executed as somebody who was a current professional could do, but I would end up pixel pushing over and over and over again, just tweaking this and tweaking that. And I would still, 6 years later of this website, be doing little bits and pieces. So in other words, it would have been a great place for me to stand in the way of getting out in the world and doing my work, staying in and mucking about with a website. And there are people who are better at it than I am and who can do it faster and leave me to be doing my work. So, I mean, those are some easy ways to see where we can stand in our own way. And then you listen to those voices say, no. It'll take me less time to do it than it will. It'll take me less time to do it than it will to explain it and teach somebody else how to do it. But when you unpack that, that's not really a great approach. Yet how many times do you hear yourself saying, oh, I'll just do it myself? Or, oh, God, here's the better tell. How often do you hear yourself saying, oh, that's just the way it is? Again, when you look at far too smart to be the only thing standing in your way. Yeah, oh, that's just the way it is. Well, you've made up that that's true. You're holding that that's true, and you're acting upon it as if it's true. But it's just a belief in your head. And whether that's, I don't have time, I don't have enough money, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not big enough, whatever it is, know that that's all just a truth that you've created and held. So again, that's just another brilliant example of where you're the only thing standing in your way. Yeah, Bill was saying that another way to look at that website example is what can be delegated, should be delegated, and that may be something that we play with later, is the 4Ds, looking at whether it's a task that you do, one that you delete, one that you defer, or one you delegate. In other words, back to what Jody was talking about, how do you prioritize your time? How do you filter through the things that hit your desktop? In real life or on the computer? How do you filter your email? Edge Institute has done some great work around those 4Ds. And if y'all are interested, let me know on the Facebook group, and I will pop some information up there about that. But the idea of really being intentional about what you put your time on and when you put your time on it, right? And I keep going back to the need to balance the information from your head and the information from your gut. And when we don't listen to our intuition, really get tangled up. And this is still a great this entire live broadcast series is another great example of, not listening to your gut. When Jody and I came up with how this structure was going to work and doing this year-long program, we were being thanks, Bill, we were being very, very intentional about how I wanted to get what I wanted to talk about in the world out in the world, and how to take advantage of what platforms were out there. And we had this whole phenomenal plan, and yet I started overthinking it. I started catastrophizing forward. I started thinking about all the limitations, and so I was the one who put it on the back burner. And when I challenged all those assumptions and all those things that I made up as true, I stopped standing in my own way and launched this. So, there's always a way to go back and look at where the things that you're holding as true, and then ask, are they really? And I'll maintain that the place that you are most likely standing in your way most aggressively and doggedly is by holding things as true that aren't. So instead of asking, what will you do now? Here's what I want to ask you to do for this next week. And I'd love you to share it in the Facebook group, is notice when you are running things through your head that, like, that's just the way that is. Oh, this is true, and test all those things that you believe are true. Ask, not are they true, when did these become true? When did it become true that I don't have time to do this? When did it become true that I'm not smart enough, or I can't do this, or I don't know how? When did it become true? What makes it true? And see what comes up. And go to facebook.com/group/Mindset Mondays, and please share some of that feedback in those stories. Because every time you experience a shift and share it, somebody else can get an impact from that. Right? You're not the only one who's having the same obstacles, the same thoughts, the same concerns, the same negative dialogue. Anything you do to get beyond it, each one teach one, right? Each person who has an experience and a shift, share it with someone else. Allow them to have a shift as well. So challenge your truths and the things that you've made up as true, and share those experiences with the rest of us. Let us grow from your growth. So again, come to Mindset Mondays Facebook group, join the group, and share the live broadcast with folks that who you think might be interested. And so again, this is our quote this week to work with. You're far too smart to be the only thing standing in your way. So step out of the way and step into what you want to see different in the world. And until next week, question for you is, what mindset will you choose? Thanks for joining.